and it's going to say access list is going to say access list permit TCP any port 20 to any. So what it's going to say is if you have any sessions coming in from port 20, allow them. So for active mode to work, all you need to do on the firewall is open up the TCP port 20 to be allowed in. So let's recap this. The client opens up a TCP FTP control session to the FTP server, and it sends a port n+1 command. The FTP server sees that it's active mode, and it sends back an acknowledgement saying, hey, I'm the FTP server, and I get that you're opened up a port n+1, and I am going to be initiating a data connection pretty soon. Next, what the server does is it uses its FTP data port, and it opens up an FTP data connection to the client running on port n+1. And through this, the data transfer happens. Now, this is great, and this works just fine. So we have looked at what we have to do in the FTP mode and what we have to do in the active mode. Recall, in the FTP mode, if you want, in the FTP mode, and if the FTP server is on the outside, for passive FTP to work, you need to enable FTP inspection on the firewall. For active FTP to work, all you need to do is open up the data port or the FTP data port on the outside interface, because that traffic is going to be coming in and it's blocked by default. So you just need to open that up, and it's going to work just fine. Great. Now that we have the theory memorized, let's go ahead into the configuration. The ASA which I'm setting on is FW1. That is this ASA, and you can see that it has a clean configuration. I've just configured the interfaces, and I've configured a basic access list on the outside interface, which is just going to be permitting ICMP traffic. I just did this because I wanted to check connectivity. So you can see that the access list I've configured just permits ICMP, and I've applied it on the outside interface. Yeah, so I've applied that access list on the outside interface. Now, I have my FTP server running on a VM, which is sitting here. That just works fine, so I'm not going to be getting into that. Let's open up the FTP client on this machine. So this is the FileZilla FTP client, and as you can see, I'm connecting to a host of 192.168.1.200. Well, I have done some NATing on the firewall, which basically NATs the FTP server 10.0.0.100 to an inside address of 192.168.1.200. Don't ask me why, because I'm having a big pain working with Windows 7, because it just will not allow me to directly connect to the ASA using GNS3. I've tried everything, but it's just not allowing me. So I've done a couple of tricks, and I finally got it to work. So I had to keep the IP address of the FTP server in the local LAN. So that's why the NAT. Otherwise, you don't have to do it. I just did it because I wanted to get Windows 7 working with GNS3. So the NAT is just basic. It's simple. I'm not doing any kind of TCP or UDP NATing. It's just simple NAT. So you can see that here. I'm just NATing the outside address of 10.0.0.100 to an inside address of 192.168.1.200, and that gets it working. So to test that, first let's open the command prompt and see if we can ping the FTP server from the FTP client. 200, right? Okay, I'm getting replies, so that means the FTP server is accessible from the client. Now let's open FileZilla, and as you can see, if you remember correctly, I've not configured anything on the firewall. So first, let's try passive firewall connection. Remember, passive mode needs FTP inspection to work. Without FTP inspection, let's go ahead and configure that. In FileZilla, let me head into settings, and let me change the transfer mode to passive, and click OK. Alright, so I'm going to be connecting to the FTP server at 192.168.1.200 with a username of Cisco and a password of Cisco. Now, remember, this is running passive mode, right? So it should not work. Click connect. I can see that the file name has been opened, but when I try to transfer some data, it should not work. So I'm just going to be heading into the file server, FTP server, and trying to transfer some data from the FTP server over to the FTP client. So anything, man. let's say I want to transfer this one file. Oh wait, it's just disconnected from server. So let me reconnect. Okay, I'm gonna head into and transfer a file and see if that works. Okay, as you can see here, it is trying to transfer it, but the traffic is getting denied because again FTP inspection is not enabled on the ASA. So if you can remember from our explanation earlier, FTP inspection needs to be enabled because the files, the ASA does not know which port is going to be used by the FTP server to send the data. So now I'm going to disconnect this, head back into my ASA, and apply the policy map on the inside interface in order to inspect the FTP data. Now I've already configured the policy map, or let's configure it all over again now. So first thing I'm going to do is create a class map, say match FTP. Let's match default inspection traffic. Now I'm going to create another policy map which says policy FTP. Call the class which I configured earlier, that is match FTP, and say inspect. You can see that there are a lot of protocols. I'm going to be inspecting FTP. So right now I have a policy map configured called policy FTP. There you go. Now I'm going to go ahead and apply that policy FTP policy map to my inside interface. So service policy map of policy FTP interface inside. So there you go. I have enabled FTP inspection now. So what the ASA is going to do is it's going to see the passive mode transfer going on, and it's going to perform, it's going to look into the FTP packets, figure out the ports, and it's going to keep the TCP session open for the data transfer. So now what we should be able to see is for the data transfer to work. So now I'm going to reconnect to the same server. I'm going to head into the same directory and try and transfer the same file. As you can see, there you go. That worked. You can see that the connection has been accepted, transfer OK, and 21265 bytes have been transferred. So for passive mode, you need FTP inspection to work. Great. Now since we've demoed all that, let's head into active mode. I'm going to disconnect from the server, go back into the ASA, remove the service policy. So now we don't have a service policy. We haven't enabled FTP inspection. We can check that. Okay, there is no service policy. Let's check the access list once more. Okay, the access list just permits ICMP. Great. So now let's go ahead and test the active mode FTP connection. In active mode, what you can, if you remember correctly, the client initiates the control mode, the server initiates the data mode, the data transfer. So all we need to do to get FTP active mode to work is put an ACE entry on the outside ACE so that the traffic which is coming from the FTP data port of 20, that is the traffic coming from the server, is permitted. But to test, let's go ahead, since we don't have anything configured on the outside access list, let's go ahead and change the FTP mode from passive, which we've been using till now. Let's change it from passive to active. Let's go ahead and connect to the server. Now let me try and transfer some data. It should not work because I am not permitting the FTP data port coming in. As you can see, it is stuck in transferring mode. That means it's still stuck in opening data channel file transfer because that traffic is getting blocked by the ASA. So what you need to do is go ahead and open up that port on the FTP on the ASA. So let me stop this, go back to the ASA and change the access list on the outside interface. Right now it just permits ICMP from any. So I'm going to be modifying this to say permit outside in permit. Let's say traffic coming in from host 10.0.0.100, that is going to be my FTP server, equals 20. That's going to be my data port. You can also say it's FTP data, but I think okay, permit host. Oh man, I'm messing up.